TikTok says it has never been used to target Americans. But that's a lie. It hunted down journalists and still lies about it. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. TikTok has over 1 billion users worldwide. It's a major cultural influencer and even a source of news for Americans. Yep, we're pretty much doomed. Especially because TikTok is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance. And like all Chinese companies, ByteDance is required by law to have a Communist Party branch inside the company and cooperate with the party on state intelligence work. Both TikTok and ByteDance also have hundreds of employees who have worked or are still working for Chinese state media. TikTok has been facing a lot of scrutiny over this, but it claims that it isn't influenced by any foreign government, including the Chinese government. Which is kind of like someone in a Taylor Swift shirt saying they're not a Swiftie. I knew you were trouble when you walked in. TikTok tries to prove its independence by allegedly keeping U.S. user data stored in the U.S. But if you follow my other channel, China Uncensored, you'd know that TikTok can't be trusted. And not just because they made Charli D'Amelio famous. I'm in my 30s. Why am I forced to know who this is? In June last year, BuzzFeed reporter Emily Baker White reported how Chinese administrators not only accessed non-public data, but also had tools that U.S. TikTok employees could not even access. If you want to learn more about that, check out the link from China Uncensored below. Now, later in October, Baker White wrote for Forbes about how ByteDance's internal audit and risk control department planned to use TikTok user IP addresses and other data to monitor specific American citizens, leading some TikTok users with 0 followers to say, "Thank God, at least someone is watching my sweet dance moves." Internal materials reviewed by Forbes show that senior executives, including TikTok CEO Shou Zi Chew, have ordered the team to investigate individual employees and that it has investigated employees even after they left the company. This included investigations on TikTok's global security chief, who was tasked with overseeing efforts to limit Chinese employees' access to American user data. TikTok wasn't very happy. Not because of ByteDance's interference, no. TikTok was upset by journalists exposing its rotten ties to China. TikTok took to Twitter, saying that Forbes' reporting lacked both rigor and journalistic integrity, specifically for not including a disclaimer from TikTok saying TikTok does not collect precise GPS location information from U.S. users, meaning TikTok could not monitor U.S. users in the way the article suggested. And yes, TikTok took to Twitter to complain because this is the world we're living in, where social media sites go to other social media sites. I can't wait until Twitter goes to Instagram to post a thirst trap. Also, just a side note, Forbes never mentioned GPS, and TikTok itself admitted that it could collect approximate location via IP addresses. It never even denied any of the claims in the story. That's like being accused of shooting the sheriff and saying, "But I didn't shoot the deputy." Anyways, TikTok then went on to say that it has never been used to target any member of the U.S. government, activists, public figures, or journalists. Which is like saying a back massager has never been used for anything other than massaging backs. Sure. TikTok has indeed spied on journalists. And they weren't targeted just for ads. I'll tell you why after the break. Welcome back. TikTok claims that its app has never been used to monitor and target Americans, including journalists. But that's a lie. Thanks to an audit by the law firm Covington and Burling, we have evidence that TikTok has targeted journalists. TikTok hired the firm to do an internal investigation of the tracking accusations, and it turns out those accusations were true. TikTok and ByteDance conducted an investigation called Project Raven, which sounds like the worst emo band you used to listen to back in high school. Project Raven began investigating journalists after the BuzzFeed News report about ByteDance's access to U.S. user data. The goal was to hunt down employees who've been exposing the company's shady practices to journalists. They did that by tracking the IP addresses of journalists and trying to figure out whether they were in the same locations as ByteDance employees. You know, the same thing that the previous Forbes article said that ByteDance did, which TikTok totally and completely denied? Whoops. Wow, who would have thought that companies tied to China would want to suppress information and hunt down journalists? That wasn't a rhetorical question. If anyone is still surprised by this, you need to find them because they're probably running out of air, with their head buried that deep in the sand. ByteDance later admitted that it did spy on journalists, but only 2 journalists, including Emily Baker White. But leaked internal documents show otherwise, because of course they do. At least 2 other Forbes journalists were also being surveilled, as well as a Financial Times journalist. When this came out, ByteDance CEO Rubo Liang wrote an internal email saying he was deeply disappointed, and he blamed this on the misconduct of a few individuals. I actually believe he was deeply disappointed when notified about these few individuals, mainly that they were caught. TikTok CEO Shou Chew said the same thing, that these were just a few individuals who misused their authority. To show how much ByteDance and TikTok care about user data security, ByteDance fired a few employees, everyone who they say was involved. So there, let's just sweep all this under the rug. Nothing to see here, right? Well, evidence indicates that this wasn't just the work of a few scapegoated individuals. According to Forbes, Project Raven involved the company's Chief Security and Privacy Office, was known to TikTok's head of global legal compliance, and was approved by ByteDance employees in China. Which is surprising. Not that they knew or spied on people, mostly that it went through all those channels, and Project Raven was still the best name any of them could come up with. This is all just more evidence that TikTok is dangerous. As FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr puts it, this is TikTok on its best behavior, spying on journalists while in the midst of negotiations with U.S. officials to safeguard data. This should be the final nail in the coffin for the idea that the U.S. can trust TikTok. Although I'm not optimistic it will. At this point, TikTok's coffin has more nails in it than Home Depot. But things are looking worse for TikTok than they have in a while. Congress just banned TikTok on federal government devices. Even an outright ban on TikTok in America is gaining steam. Frankly, we should have already banned TikTok for encouraging grandmas to dab. If TikTok's not afraid of hunting down journalists, you think they'd be afraid of hunting down people like you and me? Though, I personally take that as a badge of honor in my fight against the Chinese Communist Party. TikTok, please, try to find me. This should be enough to find me, right? So what do you think about ByteDance and TikTok spying on American journalists? Leave your comments below. And if you like this show, remember that we rely mainly on direct support from viewers like you. All it takes is as little as $1 per episode over on our crowdfunding website, Patreon. Visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered for more. Click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.